always say my job is way more than just doing hair. It's about loving people. And I'm very blessed to have such a good clientele. You meet new people every day. And I went to Paul Mitchell, and one of the main things they taught you was you don't know who is in your chair. You don't know what kind of life they've had. You might be the only kind hands that have ever touched them.
Tulsa Talks is the podcast that is inspiring people to have everyday meaningful conversations to gain perspective and help the world.
Welcome to Tulsa Talks. We have Lizzy Trronic with us today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Lizzy is a hairstylist. Tell us a little bit about what you do, like on a daily routine.
So I am my own individual boss. So I have a salon suite, and I do all the scheduling. I buy all the product. I do all the work, all the hair, and so my day-to-day is mostly texting, calling my clients, asking them to come in. We do consultation. We do what they need done, and then I check them out and send them on their way, and hopefully they have a magical, fun time while we're doing it.
What kind of treatments do you do? Just cutting hair, or is there more to it than that?
Oh, I do everything. So I do cuts, colors, facial waxing, scalp treatments. I really care about the skincare, so things of that nature. I don't do nails. That's not for me.
Yeah, nails, that's kind of its own thing, isn't it? Do stylists do nails occasionally?
So we do learn them, and then you can specialize in stuff. And so mine is mostly cuts and color. That's kind of my niche thing. But, there's plenty of stylists out there that also will do a pedicure and a haircut,
Is there anybody that's doing perms, or those a thing still?
Yes, I do a lot of perms. So predominantly boys, teenage boys really love a good perm these days. But, everyone, if you want a different hair texture, perm's a great way to go about that.
Okay. And how did you enter the field of being a hairstylist?
So I grew up in a salon. So my sister has been in the industry for 20 years. So I, from a very young age, was, Lizzy's got to be dropped off at the salon. Lizzy's got to sweep some hair, Lizzy, hand me foils. And so it was just a very comforting, safe place for me. So when high school came around, they're like, hey, where are you going to college? And I was like, I really don't know. That's a big question for a child to ask them.
Sure.
So I was like, you know what am I going to do? So I go home, I'm crying, I'm heartbroken because, I think I have to decide right then. My sister was like, you love makeup, you love hair, go to Cosmo school, and you can get in a salon. And if you decide to go to university, you can do hair on the side, go to university. And I was like, okay, that's an answer. So I went in towards schools, and I found a place, and I was like, you know what, I really want to do this. And so I went, and I fell in love with it even more. And now it's my career. That's what I do.
How long did it take for you to go through that training? So
Cosmo School is 1,500 hours. It's about 10 months. You can do it a little less or a little more. It just depends on how much you dedicate to it. And so I hit my 10-month mark a day before my expected graduation day.
Okay, cool. So it's kind of on your own schedule?
A little bit. So it varies. So a lot of women or men, humans that go to Cosmo School, they have lives. A lot of them, they were fresh out of high school. Some are like, I've had a whole career and I got burnt out, so now I'm going to Cosmo School. So they have night school, they have day school, they have part-time, So they build a schedule about what you want. I said, I want to be in and out. I want to get as much as I can out of this. So I went full-time days, and I worked 2-3 jobs on the side, just to get through. And, I just really you have to focus. You have to, because it's a lot for hair school. You're taking in so much information, and you're trying to build that skill. You're trying to build how you communicate with people. And everyone has their own individual style to that. The way I might do it is not the same as even my sister does it.
So the way you communicate being a hairstylist is important?
Super important. So, I always say my job is way more than just doing hair. It's about loving people. And I'm very blessed to have such a good clientele. You meet new people every day. And I went to Paul Mitchell, and one of the main things they taught you was you don't know who is in your chair. You don't know what kind of life they've had. You might be the only kind hands that have ever touched them. So you really need to think about how you approach that. So, always ask for consent. Like, I'm not just going to like grab your hair and be like, oh, I love your hair. You'd be like, do you feel safe with me getting it like started with this procedure, And so it's very important.
Yeah, I would expect somebody to start cutting my hair after I told them what I wanted. And some people you have to nurture into that.
Yes, you do. Yeah. Some people, it's very scary. There's a lot of hair trauma that comes with that, and that stems from all kinds of things. And so some people are very, very scared. That's why being in a suite's really important to me, because it's overstimulating. It can be very scary. I'm a stranger at the beginning. And so I want you to know that I'm a safe person, and I want to help you reach that goal.
Yeah. How long is your normal hairstyle?
So like just a cut can take it depends on really what the client's wanting, and how much we start talking.
Yeah. You normally do ladies' hair?
Ladies, I have men clients as well. And so it just kind of depends on like what they're wanting and like how often they get their hair done. I have some people, they come in once a year. So that might take me 6-8 hours just because we're doing a year's worth of services in one go. Then I have some people, they come in every 4 weeks, so it's just like, just clean it up real quick, wash your hair and send you on your way.
Yeah. And is there a different price for the ones that take longer?
So that depends on the service. So for I do fashion colors. That's going to be your pinks, your blues, your greens, your yellows. Those are my hourly prices just because, or a corrective service. So if you're like, oh no, Lizzy, I put black box dye on my hair and I really don't want it in my hair anymore. In order to keep the integrity of your hair like healthy and safe, that's going to be a longer process. That's whenever it moves into like an hourly, because I'm like, I don't know. Some people have magic hair and I can make this happen really quick. Some I have to take several steps in order to ensure that this goes properly and safely.
Mm-hmm. But as a man, it takes me 20 minutes to get a haircut.
Yeah.
And women, it might take them an hour plus.
Yeah, it can.
So are those prices the same?
So I determine them by short or long. So my short cuts are a different price just because they're in and out. And then my longer cuts, they do require more like time and more product. And therefore, that's a separate price as well.
Okay. Yeah. I have been having my wife cut my hair with a set of clippers for the last few years. And I've always been to men's places.
Yeah.
And not barbers, but stylists. And they were all the same price. That's why I was wondering how that worked, because I know that it takes more time for longer haircuts or maybe more specific things wanted.
Yes, yeah. And so typically with that, I always discuss that with the client. I never want to just drop the bomb at the end and be like, by the way, that's going to be a lot of money that maybe you weren't prepared for, So, and I always give them, like, if they're like, this is my price that I have, I'm like, okay, let's go through my sheet and let's see what we're working with. And then we can build from there to get you to a goal that you're happy with, that still makes you feel comfortable and you don't feel like, darn, like I just dropped a lot of money in one go. So sometimes we do have to break it into several appointments. And I'm like, then therefore that's easier on them. It's easier on their hair and it makes them feel comfortable.
Okay. Take them through a process instead of a one-time action.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like, you can't always jump the gun on these things. Slow and steady wins the race, especially in the Cosmo world.
Okay. You said something about new customers. Do you get new customers on a regular basis?
Oh, yeah, probably like almost every day, So we get walk-ins. I get people through social. I get people from recommendations, like Facebook. People will post like, I need a stylist that can do this, And if I feel like I might be the right fit, I'll shoot them a little message and be like, I'd love to meet you. Come in and talk. And then, so we'll set up a consultation. Sometimes we'll do the appointment that day. Sometimes we'll be like, okay, this is kind of going to be, we're going to really have to chip away at this. So you come in, we get a game plan, we talk prices, and then we can go from there.
And how do you keep those customers?
So by building that relationship with them. I'm a firm believer that you build that relationship with them. Let them know that this is a safe place. They can talk to me. They know what to expect from me. I'm in a private room. So if you're a little scared, you don't want to talk at all during this appointment, we don't have to. I let them pick music. I have snacks that never hurts, and overall just give them a good service, and let them know that I'm there for them and they just come back.
Where is your studio?
So 66 in Memorial. It's in a salon suites building called Salons by JC.
66 in Memorial. That's right there at the Walmart?
Right across. Yep. And so it's just like right in that little shopping center. And
Across Memorial from Walmart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right across from Walmart. And so my sister was there. So she moved in and she was pregnant. And I had just got my hair license, and she was like, Lizzy, someone's got to take my clients while I'm away on maternity leave. And I was like, okay. So I interned under her. I knew most of her clients already. I've known them since I was 7 years old. So they were like, wow, Lizzy's been handing foils forever, and now Lizzy's doing my hair. And so I got comfortable with them. I learned their hair formulas, what their techniques that they prefer, and learned their schedule. And then when my sister had baby, I just stepped in, and I'm like, I'm Juice Jr. and, just pretend that I'm her. And then she came back and she's like, you stay with me now. So we moved another chair in, and we've been doing hair ever since together.
You were talking about building relationships.
Yeah.
And everybody's different, right? How do you approach that initial ice-breaking portion of a relationship?
I usually like to ask my clients, like, what do you do? Because I'm like, my job, I see all kinds of jobs in there. And so I'm like, what do you do? What do you like? What makes you happy? What kind of music do you like? And then that usually kind of like gets them like opening up a little bit, and then I kind of let them guide the conversation, let them go, and I can add my tidbits there. And I love to make them laugh. It's like a little stand-up comedy show in there. Some people stay extra long because we're just laughing so hard, and I'll be like, oh shoot, you need to go. Like you have life outside of the salon. And so it's just really good to ask questions. You have to really get to know them and let them talk. Some people, that is their one chance to go and like vent, or tell exciting news. I have some clients, they'll be like, Lizzy, I have something I have to tell you, but like I want to tell you in person. Can you just wash my hair? And they'll pop in, I'll wash their hair, and they'll be like, I got a new job, or we're expecting a baby, or, like I'm moving, So I'm like, you become this important figure in their life, and sometimes a family member for them or a friend. And it's really beautiful, and everyone is very individual.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've noticed, that everyone is individual, but it seems like we have a pattern to life of, I might be experiencing this specific subject, but it's all kind of a flow. And that way you can engage people where they are with learning what they do, how they do it, what their interests are, and then just develop that by allowing, being able to help the conversation flow.
Yeah.
Is that what you've noticed as well?
Yeah, I'm like, you just gotta let them lead, let them come to you with that information. I'm not just gonna dig right into their personal business. It'll come out. I'm always like, I like to tease that the hair chair is like a confessional booth. Like, they sit down, and then sometimes they'll just, tell you big things, and you're like, okay, like, do you want to talk more about that? Or was that like a one thing you just wanted to let out, and that's safe here? And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't,
Yeah. So you make sure that they're okay with sharing by pointing out, hey, that was pretty intimate. Can we continue talking about this?
Yeah. And sometimes they're like, I just needed to say that. I just need to get it off my chest. Or sometimes they're like, I want your opinion on that. And, and I'm like, sometimes it's something that way out of my field house, and I just have to be a safe place and hear it out, and I'm like, I don't have an answer for that. I wish I did, but, thank you for feeling safe to share that with me. And then usually we try to turn it into something lighthearted if it's a heavy topic, or if it's a really exciting topic. Sometimes that's overwhelming too. And you're just like, wow, okay, you hit the lottery. That's crazy. And so you just kind of have to let them lead and, be that listening voice. That's what hair is for.
Yeah. Can you give me an example of what something that shocked you?
Shocked me.
Something
I get a
that was
lot
almost overwhelming.
Without going too much, there's been a lot of pregnancy announcements, so that's been a very exciting one. All the other ones I probably wouldn't feel comfortable sharing per se, but like I do get a lot of like, oh, I'm pregnant, and and the hair will tell you that, because usually your hair might not take anymore, or your hair might be growing really crazy, and so.
What does that mean, growing really crazy?
Like, you might be thinning, or it might even get thicker. You can, like, hormones change your hair structure a lot. And so I'll be like, we've been doing the same formula over and over again, and all of a sudden it's turning neon pink on me. And they're like, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, okay, that answers a lot of questions. And you just got to reformulate. So
that's one of the things that hairstylists might need to know?
Yeah, you got to pivot. Your hair will tell you a lot. Your hair holds a lot of secrets, and hormones change a lot of that. Medicine also changes that. Health things change that. So as we get older, as we start families, like, your hair will change, and that's okay. We just got to pivot sometimes.
Yeah, mine changed a little bit.
That's all right.
Not there as much anymore.
That's all right.
So what about Lizzy? We've talked about what Lizzy does.
Yeah.
What about Lizzy herself? She's more than work, surely.
I am more than work, surely. What do you want to know?
What's your hobby, if you have one?
Hobbies. So I just recently learned to sew. I took a sewing class with my mama at the Tulsa Tech here. It was lovely. And that kind of stemmed from, I was watching something on PBS with my dad, and it was about brain development. And he was like, it was about, you have to constantly be learning. You have to constantly be learning for your brain to, like, be at its, like, peak performance. And I was like, in hair, I'm always learning. I'm learning new techniques, new trends. You got to keep up with that, because clients are going to come in with new stuff. But he was like, well, what do you want to learn outside of that? And I was like, I didn't really think about that. And so I was like, I kind of like to learn to sew. I'm a short girl. I'm petite. And so I was like, my pants are never the right length. I'm always, like, rolling them, stepping on them. That's just not cute. And so I was like, I really want to learn to sew. So for my birthday, he was like, I got you and Mama some sewing classes. And I was like, perfect. My sister got me a machine. And so now I'm learning to hem pants.
So you hem your own pants?
Yeah, it's not these ones. They need it, though. Yeah, but I'm like, I'd like to get into quilting. I think that would be really fun. I like anything detail-focused. Embroidering, I'm learning to do that too. I think that's fun. So something that keeps the hands busy. If your hands are busy, your brain's busy. And I think that's very good for you.
How do you avoid carpal tunnel syndrome with all of this hand movement?
So hand stretching, there are certain hand techniques that you're supposed to stretch your hands. You're supposed to wear hand braces. Now, do I do that? No, but I definitely should. Wearing the right shoes to keep, like, the body healthy, stretching, chiropractors, stuff of that nature. And so it'll eventually catch up with me. That's, like, kind of the end of the line for all hairdressers, is eventually it gets to our body. But taking care of your body and preserving your health as long as possible is the way to go for that.
Yeah, what's your plan when that happens?
Whenever I'm done with hair.
Whenever you get carpal tunnel, if you get it.
If I get it.
You said that is the end game.
That is the end game. Hopefully I'm at retirement age, but I've met hairdressers that are in their 90s doing 1 or 2 clients a week. It's just kind of becomes ingrained in us.
So no plan B. This is what
this
you
is
do.
it. I'm going to make it happen, So I do my stretches, and I'm going to talk to my doctor as it progresses, and just go from there.
How long have you been doing hair?
So 5, almost 6 years.
So COVID-ish, just before COVID.
Right. Like, I got my hair license. I got into a salon. 3 days later, the world shut down. It was crazy. And so at that time, it was like, okay, this is the end for me. Like, the world's ending around me. I'm not going to do hair. And my sister was a big voice for that. She was like, no, we're going to have to pivot. And she's like, we can get through this, though, and you will get back into the salon. And so...
What did you do with that time?
So I actually stayed away from hair for a while. I just did serving and stuff of that nature. A lot of mannequin work, some haircuts out of my house, for friends. And I was just like, I don't know. And really, my sister was like, I'm pregnant and I really need you to help me. And I was like, okay.
So did you go to people's houses at that time since the salons couldn't be open?
No.
And they were shut down for months, right?
Yes, they were. So I was not in a salon, so I wasn't really on that end of it. But my sister was doing like care packages. So they were selling product and dropping it off on people's doorsteps so that they still could get their hair color and get their things, the shampoo and stuff that they needed in order to take care of themselves during that.
What an odd time.
It was a wild, wild time. So, yeah, she would just go to the beauty supply store and be like, they need this, this, and this. And she'd pack it up and take it to them, make sure they had their shampoo and conditioner, their pomades. And she was like, we will get back in the salon one day. And then there was a little bit of a boom after that once people could start going back because they were like, I've been cutting my own hair. I really need some help. And so it's all about pivoting. It did not end our world. It just paused for a little bit.
Yeah, and that pause was very hard on a lot of businesses that had overhead.
Yes.
You girls were fortunate that your overhead wasn't overwhelming.
No, yeah. So I think they took a pause on that, and they were like, that money will come in. Hair is one of those things that never goes out of style. It never stops. And so a lot of stylists had to get really creative. Some got mobile salons, they were going to people. And then a lot of clients, they were growing their hair out. They were just like, I'll go back to the salon whenever it's ready. And so it was an adventure for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like naked Zoom time, right? People forgetting that their spouse was on the Zoom.
Oh, I guess so, yes. I was not in the Zoom life at that time.
Yeah, like some high-powered people talking about staying home, not cutting your hair, and having a different life. That actually did happen several times.
Yes.
People get caught walking around their house in their underwear or whatever.
Yes, yeah, because you're not used to having a camera on you 24/7. I'm sure.
So you like to do hair. You enjoy sewing now for your pants. Do you do any other sewing?
So I've made some, most of the clothes is kind of what I really want to focus on. I want to get into just making clothes that fit my body. The clothing industry does not make clothes for short, round girls. And I'm going to make my own then. I'll change that for myself.
Okay, cool. So you know how to adjust patterns and stuff like that?
A little bit. I'm very new, so I'm really learning. So I'm always, looking at tutorials on TikTok and YouTube and everything of that nature and kind of learning and growing from that. But I'm like, I like the tediousness of it. I like to measure it out. I love the cutting of fabric. I'm like, something about scissors in my hands feels very natural. And so I'm like, that's I love to read. That's something I love to just.
Do you read or do you listen?
I read. I can't listen. I can't focus like that. I need to physically see it. I'll do the tablet sometimes, but I'll just, Facebook will suddenly pop open, I get away from the book. And so I'm very much a physical book kind of girly.
Yeah. From what I understand, those things are kind of going away. People buying physical books.
Are they? I feel like they not.
Or they did for a while.
I feel like maybe, yeah. The tablet was a convenience. But I know a lot of people. But I know a lot of people that want a physical book, and I know plenty of people that are like, I have to listen. I cannot sit there and read. And I think neither is wrong. Dyslexia is a thing. But they still get to enjoy the story of itself. Blindness is a thing, but they still get to enjoy the story itself. And so I think whatever fits you is right for you. But physical book for me, I need to carry that around. I also don't have to worry about it running out of power, you're at the peak of the story and then poof, gone. I can't have that. What
types of books do you read?
So I love romance. I love a rom-com, a meet cute. I also really love a good thriller. Nothing too gory though. I'm kind of a scaredy cat like that. A good mystery, a cozy mystery, ideally. I would love to know who's taking cupcakes from the bakery kind of thing. And so something lighthearted. I don't want anything too serious. Life is serious enough. I don't need my novels to be as serious.
How are they serious sometimes? I'm not a novel reader. I'm an instructional reader.
Oh, it just depends on what you're reading, some, can get really, really sad, really dark, you know, in like the horror community. They can be too gory, too violent. I don't want that. I'm like, I just want maybe a little ghost to pop out once in a while. That's fine with me. Or I just want, you know, the girl at the bakery to fall in love with the big boss at the big company, you know, down the street kind of thing. And it's just fun to like just get immersed in something simple and lighthearted.
Why read instead of watch?
You know, I just have always loved reading. So growing up, I had trouble learning to read, and it just was not working out for me. But my dad, he loves to read, and he's like, Elizabeth, you have to know how to read. And I was like, okay, I know you say that, but like, I'm not interested. I don't, you know, like it feels like homework and I don't want to do homework. I'm 6 years old. And so he was like, okay. And so he packed me up, took me to the library, and he was like, pick out anything and we're going to learn to read. And so it was summertime and I was walking around, and I found a Goosebumps by R.L. Stine, and he was like, that's what you want. And it was a scary book. And I was like, yeah, I want this. And so every night before bed, he was like, you're going to read to me. So I'd tuck him into bed and I'd sit by the bed and I'd chip away at this book. And we got through it. And he was like, that was not so hard. And it was a lot of fun. And so I'm a firm believer you have to learn to love to read in order to learn to read. And so after that, you know, he took me to the library every week and he was like, pick out a book that you want to read. And from there, you know, so I'm a firm believer. Like if I go to a bookstore and I get a book that I don't want to read, I'm not going to force myself to read it because it feels like homework. Mm-hmm. No one wants to do that unless it's necessary. But you have to just find something that you genuinely want to be a part of. How
far into a book will you go before you decide that you want to continue or not?
Usually it just gets to a point where I'm like, I'm done. Like I'm
Where's that point? How far?
It's different for every novel. So like I did, it was a horror novel and it's called Splatterpunk. So they're really gory. And one of my best friends had it and she was like, I couldn't read it. You should try it. And I was like, you know, I'm not going to be able to finish this. Made it 15 pages in, and nothing against the author. It's just not my type of reading. And so, you know, I just have that point where I'm like, it's time to tap out. Like I'm not enjoying this and reading should be fun. And
have you ever done that close to the end of the book?
Yes, I have actually. It was a really sad novel and it was just, I wanted it to end happy. So I just let it be happy. In my heart, it ended in a beautiful spot. I know it doesn't end that way because of course I went and looked up the ending Of course. No, not of course. You didn't have to do that. You do, though. I did need to know, but I didn't want, but it lives in my heart as a happy ending.
Yeah, I go to sleep at movies sometimes, maybe halfway, 3/4 of the way through. Not every time, but sometimes. And my wife, Rita, she'll be like, you missed the end of the movie. I said, no, I got to make the end of the movie what I wanted it to be. Don't tell me what it was.
You don't have to have
I didn't need to know.
We can just like choose to know the ending of a movie. Or
make it up myself. Let my imagination take it wild.
Yes, it's not like I chose an autobiography, you know. I can't choose someone's real life story, but fiction, I can make that up. That's what fiction's for.
Oh, I can make somebody's autobiography. Why not? As long as I don't tell anybody how that this is their life.
Yeah.
Talking about that, and sad, tragic. For some reason, my mind went to a fellow that came in, and he had been a House Representatives guy for like 8 years, two terms in Oklahoma City. And there was a guy, they should make a movie about this or a book, 27 years on death row, almost executed 3 times. And from what he said, the people knew that things were hidden and things were not given. Mm-hmm. And they knew that man was maybe innocent, and they proved that he was after 27 years on death row. How about that for a book?
And that's worthy of noting, that's worthy of writing. That's incredible.
Yeah. Not a book that you would like, though.
Probably not. No, probably something, unless, it was something that I was really drawn to. I'm like, it just depends on, but I also feel like most books, they're worth at least trying, at least start the first few pages. You don't know where they might lead.
So how often do you get people that come into the hair salon to talk about books and that sort of thing? And sewing, since those are your things.
Almost all of my clients, we talk about books. I'm like, book talk is a very big thing. And that's one of those things. I'm like, are you on book talk? And they're like, yes, what are you on? And then I'm always looking for book recommendations, and sometimes clients bring me books. Sometimes I bring them books. I was like, oh, last appointment, we talked about this. It's sitting on my shelf collecting dust. Like, you give it a shot, see what you think, So it's almost like a little book club in there sometimes.
You said, are you on Book Talk? Is that a thing? Is that a platform?
Oh, yes.
Tell me about it.
It's a whole side of TikTok with they're called book influencers, and they just recommend books, or sometimes talk down on books that they don't like, and just give reviews. And, it goes pretty deep. There's they're called purist, and they want their books to stay in pristine condition. And then there's others that annotate. That's when you write physically in the book, and you take notes along with it, and you draw on it, and you immerse yourself into that book. And so that can stir the pot for anyone. But I feel like as long as it's your book, you should be able to do whatever you want with it.
You say that the people get offended by other people writing in their own books?
Yeah, it can. Some people want their books to stay pristine, like library condition. And
so if I have a book and I want to write in my own book or highlight things in it, that could be offensive to others.
It could be a little bit, yeah, because they're just like, books aren't meant for drawing, they're not for writing. But for some people, the way their mind processes it, I've definitely annotated some books, and some I keep in pristine condition. Depends on the book. If I'm like, this is a book I kind of chipping away at, but I'm getting a little bored with it, but I do plan on coming back, I'll annotate in it so that I can just go through and read my notes and be like, okay, that's what this is about, and I can pick up from there. And so I'm like, it just depends on how you like to read. And, some people, again, that goes back to they want to read it on their phone. Some people, they want to go check it out from the library. Some people want to own their books so they can write in them. And
what length of book do you like to read?
Oh, it just depends on the story, but I typically hit about 300 to 400 pages is the length of a book. That's a decent sized chapter book.
Yeah, I go by words in a book. You have no idea how many words.
Oh no, I don't keep track of words.
Yeah. Most of my books that I've written are somewhere in the 30 to 50,000 words.
Okay.
And I have some systems and processes that are more one of them is 600,000 words.
Okay.
The Bible's 780,000, just to give you an idea of how thick and dense that is. But that's a career pathway, which people actually only need to probably read somewhere around 80 to 100,000 words to be able to narrow what they want to do.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't know that I'm a multi-book author along with articles.
Now, what got you writing? What drew you to that?
Not high school for sure.
Not high school?
Not high school for sure, because high school was so much the novel stuff.
Yeah.
And the Shakespearean stuff. And that is not how I'm geared. My gear is more toward informational, educational, inspirational.
Okay.
Which is not novels to me, right?
Okay, what
do
you draw inspiration from then?
My life experience of how I lived and who I've interacted with.
Okay.
Is my inspiration, and they are very intentional books because people have challenges in different areas of their life, and my writings are to help people, and just like the Complete Peace movement and Tulsa Talks is all about helping people connect to themselves and their surroundings better. And that's why we're having this conversation today, is because who knew Lizzy?
Who knew Lizzy?
And I didn't know Lizzy.
Yeah.
But I've gotten to know her a little bit today, and I got to know a little bit more about the hair industry, the stylist career. And I've also got to know a little bit more about books that I didn't know that TikTok had what's it called?
Book Talk.
Book Talk.
I definitely recommend. They'll have inspirational novel recommendations and stuff. They have something out there for everyone in this world.
And they have it categorized so it's easy to find.
Yeah, just look up book talk inspirational novels, and you'll find them. You'll find some that you don't like. You'll find some that you do love, and some that you've never even heard of.
So if I can I go to TikTok, I look up book talk, and then they have the categories listed there.
Yeah, they'll have like, different like buttons for that, and you can also search. You might even search your own book. Someone might be talking about you on there.
What if I don't know what I want out of life? How do I find that in the chatter that exists? So if my lane is, say, I ride a motorcycle all the time, but I want to do something different, how do I find something different in life that I want to do?
I think that starts with curiosity. I think that question right there is like the starting point. If it piques your interest and you're like, hey, what is
But
that?
how do you know that it exists if it's not even there? Because, so many people, do you not have your lane that you run in?
I do, but I'm also open to those side roads. I feel
How do you find side roads?
I think you stumble upon them, like sewing. I never really thought about it until I had that conversation. It kind of piqued my interest. And then, that one gift of like, hey, I bought you a class. It's like 6 weekends. And I was like, okay, let's see you. Like, all right, let's do it. Now here I am. And I love it, and I just, that fuels me to want to keep going. And so I think you should also, sometimes maybe you have to look at it like a dartboard and just throw something and go for it. Just go after it,
What inspires you to continue throwing that arrow or that dart and seeing where it sticks? What's your next dart gonna hit?
I hope something magical and wild and fun. I don't ever know where that dart's gonna go. I think my clients inspire me. My sisters inspire me. I think myself as a person inspires me. That curiosity is what kind of gets me going. I'm like, well, what if, or what about this? Let's see, like, what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst about asking that question? Is it a no? Okay, that's okay. And then we just go from there.
Have you ever been inspired by one of your patrons to do something outside your box?
Yeah, I feel like, it maybe seems small, but, it's always like, what are you having for lunch? I always ask people, what are you having for dinner? Because isn't that like the worst thing about being an adult besides laundry is having to figure out what you're going to have for dinner? So I've had all kinds of wonderful restaurants just because my client's like, oh, I love this place. I go there all the time. And I'll be like, okay, I'll just shimmy on down the road and see like what they have,
Yeah, my wife and I took a 13,000 mile plus adventure in our RV pulling our Jeep last year.
Yeah.
We're gone for 2.5, 3 months, something like that. And we had no idea where we were going. We knew we were going to Alaska.
Okay. Did we make it to Alaska?
We made it to Alaska.
Did we love Alaska? Did it live up to its hype?
We did love Alaska. We saw 20 whale tails, one breached completely out of the water on one of our things. We took 3 or 4 boat rides, a couple of helicopter rides, and just blew it all out. Ended up down in San Diego.
Okay.
And that's why it was quite a few miles. Went all the way down the West Coast.
Okay.
And that being said, I say all that to say this. We did what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We met random strangers where we stopped, when we stopped, and we were like, we're doing this. What do you suggest?
Yes. And I bet you had more fun doing it that way than like just Googling it. And they were like, here's the top 10 list,
We did that.
Yeah.
We did do that. We did a little bit of research, and I said we didn't know where we were going. We knew we were going to Alaska. We knew we had like 3 stops or 4 stops of interest. And there's a lot more stops than that needed to be made.
Yeah.
So we had a light itinerary to be completely open book with it. But after we got to Alaska, which we took the wrong turn, and we ended up about 300 miles from where we thought we were going to be. Actually, we didn't take a turn. The Alaskan Highway is long. You ever heard of the Alaskan Highway?
I have not.
1,300 miles of potholes and gravel and dirt and all kinds of stuff. The military built it during World War II.
Okay.
In like 7 months. And they just remote places. You don't have anything for 150 miles at some of those stretches. Nothing. No gas station, no nothing. So they're very remote and hard to get material there.
Okay.
And you only have a certain amount of time to build the road. because it gets frigid, and when it freezes,
can't have it freezing over.
Yeah. You can't do construction during the freeze. So, and then it thaws, and then the freeze thaw. We experienced that with the roads right here in Tulsa. Things are broken up and lifted and heave-hoved and potholes and everything else because of freeze thaw, and that is, like I said, somewhere around 1,300 miles of that. So the Alaskan Highway has a right turn and continues going straight too. Okay. There's a big sign over it, right?
Yes.
And it says, take a right to go to continue on the Alaskan Highway. That's the only one that exists.
Okay.
That's the one we missed.
Oh, no. So how did you get back? You just have to ride that whole straight thing and...
We did. But we happened to come upon, I don't even remember the little port city there, but we went to Juneau.
Okay.
On a ferry.
Wonderful.
Juneau, you can get to Juneau by a ferry or by airplane. Okay. There are no roads.
So there's only two options.
Two options. There are no roads. You cannot drive to the capital of Alaska.
Okay.
So all that being said, we went out on that adventure. We had a wonderful time, and we relied on others to be able to help us through this path.
Guide you through.
Yeah. It's just a little bit further down the West Coast. Well, we basically ended up, at the border.
Okay.
After it was all said and done. All that being said, I think that human interaction should be more personal, like we're doing now, like you do at your hair salon. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I think so, yes. I'm like, it's all about those relationships. Isn't that what life is building those relationships, seeing someone else's perspective on life? I think that's how we grow as humans, is like, oh, I didn't even think of that because I didn't know that was an option. So then you kind of can open doors and take that journey.
That you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, you don't even know that's
How do you open the door if you don't know it exists?
I think by asking questions.
By knowing the door exists.
You got to find out about the door, and you got to ask questions to find out about doors. And I think those are the most fulfilling conversations and relationships you can build.
So back to hair and your career. What is the most fulfilling part to you about it?
Seeing people light up. I'm like, seeing them being like, I feel good in myself. And, I always think I can't go out there and protect you from the world. But I'm like, I can do this one little thing and, you feel safe and protected right now. You feel confident right now. And so I love that, like people have a bad day, sometimes they just need their hair washed, they just need that to vent, and then they leave feeling beautiful. Like that's a really, like, it's instant gratification. Like you're just like, yeah, I did that. I knocked that out of the park.
So by you seeing somebody, hearing somebody, and appreciating somebody, you get to also see yourself, hear yourself, and appreciate yourself by giving to them. Yes.
It's very much the act of giving, that little bit of confidence, that little boost, that, that little pep talk before that great job interview they're going to, it's just like, you can ride that high all day. You go home, I'll clean my whole house because I'm like, I just felt so good. I was able to give them that little pocket of happiness. And then they also share so much happiness with me, and they share their sadness and their anger and their frustrations, and that's all good too, because I'm like, I want to hear about those things because I genuinely care. And, I want to tell them about my stuff too. And it's really, they become like family, and so sometimes they don't come in. You're like, where are they? I better call them up, and they're like, oh, I'm on vacation. I'm like, girl, you did not tell me that, but that's okay. I'll see you next time, So I'm like, it brings me immense joy to take care of people. And I'm very much in the business of love. I'm like, I get to pamper, and, it's so easy to just be like, well, let's do a little facial while we're at the shampoo bowl. I know you're having a rough week. Let's do a little a little scalp treatment, and then they leave feeling good.
My thought would be, is she upselling me? Are you upselling them by giving them a facial?
Sometimes, yes. Yeah, because, you still got to make money in this industry. Mm-hmm. But also sometimes it's just a little... It doesn't take any extra from me to
Not a whole lot of times. Sometimes it's
just a
I
little
want to do this for you. Here's a little
like I
gift.
genuinely want
We have a
to.
good relationship. I feel like giving this to you
Yes,
right now.
I genuinely want to help take care of you right now. And, they show that by, the best way possible is referring people to me. They're like, go to Lizzy. Lizzy will take good care of you. You'll be safe in her chair. You'll feel good. You'll leave looking good. And, she genuinely cares about you.
How booked are you right now?
I'm very booked. I'm booked out like a month in advance right now. And then
how many hours do you work a week?
So it kind of fluctuates, about 30 hours a week, maybe more, maybe less. It just kind of depends. This is kind of the slow season.
But any more than 30 hours, is that good for your hands and your arms? How many hours do you feel comfortable working?
I always say I'll work till I drop. And so probably not the healthiest for my body, but also, again, you got to take care of your clients. They come first. And so
you're booked at 30 hours, but you're able to work more hours.
I could, yeah. And it also depends on if like the service goes over and they're like, they might come in for a haircut and they'll be like, I need highlights too. Like, I didn't realize I need a root touch up. And so we're like, all right, let me look at my schedule. And if I can accommodate, I will. And so
how do you determine if you're booked or not? I mean, where's that cutoff point? Because you said I'm booked, I'm working 30 hours, I can work more. How do you determine when you're booked, when you're not, when you'll take more customers, and when you'll schedule more?
Depends on the length of their, like what their services they're getting. Okay. And so if they're like, it could be some weeks, and it's always different. Some weeks I have just haircuts. Some weeks it's back-to-back colors. Some weeks it's, they're coming in just for an eyebrow wax, and
those colors are kind of hard to schedule, are they not?
I don't know if I would say hard to schedule. They're just, you got to be very meticulous about what you're putting down. And you also,
if a lady comes in and her hormones have changed for some reason, she's been sick, she's got pregnant, whatever, and her hair is turning a different color than you want, that takes additional time.
Yes,
right?
That'll take additional time.
So that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's hard to determine exactly the length of schedule with those.
Yeah, that's why we
much different than getting their hair cut.
Yes, sometimes that's why I try to do a consultation. So especially if it's a new client, I'll be like, hey, just pop in for 15 minutes. We might not do the service today. We might have to book it tomorrow because this might take more than an hour and a half like we originally planned. Okay. And it depends on the style. If they're wanting neon pink hair with, neon blue highlights, that takes a lot of time. And so you just tell them like, hey, this is the process, the step-by-step that we're going to do. And this is how much product we're looking at. And we got to block out enough time so that you're not feeling rushed. I'm not feeling rushed. We're not bleeding into a different appointment. You get to go home and go to sleep. I get to go home and go to sleep kind of thing. So, but sometimes they do run over. Sometimes they take quicker. Sometimes you're like, wow, that like just went in my favor today. And I get to go home early.
Yeah. But it's a lot more challenging if you have them back to back and the first one goes different than expected.
It can, yes. And so that's whenever you're just like, you might have to come back for a second part, or, you just text that client, be like, hey, I'm running 15 minutes behind. You want to stop and grab coffee, take your time. I'll be with you though.
All about customer experience.
Yeah. And so you just keep them comfortable. And then a lot of my sister's clients and my clients, they're friends now. So they just sit in there and chat together, and my sister helps me and I help her. If she's running a little bit behind, I'm like, yeah, I'll finish styling your client for you. Don't worry about it. Like, it's, it's like one big sleepover party in our salon.
That's cool. With guys accepted.
Yeah, guys are always allowed. They're more than welcome, but they have to be fun. You have to be cool. You got to tell us a funny story. I always want some like tidbit of gossip, nothing nasty, but something silly. And if you got that, you're welcome to my salon.
So where do they find you? I know that it's 66th and Memorial across the street from Walmart, across Memorial from Walmart. How do they find you though?
So a lot of referrals, like word of mouth. And so I get a lot of walk-ins. That's kind of how I built my clientele.
But I'm talking about if anybody's watching the video.
Oh, like social media. So you can find me at Lovely Looks by Lizzy on Instagram. And that is like the easiest platform to find me on. It's got some hair videos, got some pictures, and then you can also go to my sister's Facebook and Instagram. It's under Prismatic Salon, which is the name of our salon building, suite itself. And we do a lot of collaborations together. So We throw sleepover parties, which is where you get a little facial, you get a scalp treatment, you get a like wash and style. We tell ghost stories. There's always snacks. We do a costume party around Halloween, so people come in costumes. They get their hair done. Sometimes we'll do face paint, like things like that. Like it's always just like fun, silly little things that like they have fun, we have fun, and everyone leaves looking good. And what more could you ask for?
Not much. Look pretty, get to look pretty while you're having fun.
Yes, exactly.
We will have Lizzy's information, contact information in the descriptions of this video. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun. Again, this is one of those doors that I didn't even think about knocking on, but here I am. Walked right on through.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
We are here to help you discover or develop your passions, how you can use them, and why you exist. How can we help you help others better?